Today I want to take a look at a video that I recently posted on Instagram. Now, looking at this, most of the questions that I've gotten are how and why. Is this good for your hips, or were your hips designed to do this? The short answer is yes, but the long answer is it depends. Now, if we take a look at the hip, it's where the femur, or the long bone in our leg that most people refer to as the thigh, and the pelvis in a place called the acetabulum connect. Now, some people have shallower acetabulums or shallower hip sockets, which means that they're going to be more likely to be good at mobility type things. Some people have deeper hip sockets, which means that they are usually better at stability things like squatting with heavy weights. Now, can we take someone with a deep hip socket and get them really mobile? I think the answer is yes, but it takes a long time and you have to do it in a way that is smart. Now, why does this matter? Now, I believe that adding mobility is going to be helpful for anyone in the world. But what we want to do with this is add strength to that mobility. We want strength through the entire range of motion that we have. And so what I want to do over the next few weeks is show you a few different ways that we can A, open up the hips and gain some mobility, but B, add strength on top of that. Now, this is going to be good for people that are more into the mobility side, things like yoga or dance or things like that, even though those are strong as well. And then people that are more into the strength side, which would be more like a power lifter or bodybuilder, things like that. Now, we know that these worlds blend a little bit, but this is what they're traditionally known for. And I think that blending them even more would be better off for people in general movers, generalists. And so today I'm going to go through a few different ways to A, figure out what we feel in our hips, and to realize when we're using things that we should be using, or if there are certain things that we should be using more. And two, I want to show a couple ways to stretch the hips to help open them up a little bit. Now, over the next few weeks, we're going to go through some ways to stay strong in those positions, but today we're just going to work on feeling things and opening up the hips a little bit. So let's take a look. To begin, we just want to feel out what we feel in our hips and see if we're able to move them. Now, many people, I can put you in a position, and if I tell you to engage your glute from that position, and you don't even know what that feels like, it's counterintuitive to what we're trying to do. So the first movement or task that I like to give is going into flexion and going into extension of the low back through the hips. Now, this looks a lot like a cat-cow, if you've heard of this. And we can do this seated, we can do this standing, we can do this in many different positions, all of which look a little bit silly, but goal number one is going to be to stop taking yourself so seriously. And goal number two is going to be feel what you feel and where you feel it. Now, if we watch a dancer who's a good mover, one of the things that makes them look so good when they move is that it's fluid. And many times as we start this and we start to feel things out, you're going to feel little like hitches as we do this. And it's going to feel awkward and strange. But as we get more comfortable in our body and we can feel what we're doing, those are going to go away and the movement will be more fluid. And that's the goal with the first task. Now that we're starting to understand what part of our body we're meant to feel things or where we feel things, we can start to stretch. And with these stretches, I want you to feel these in a certain area, but there's going to be a few different areas that you feel them depending on your tight spots. The beauty of this is that you're now going to be able to tune into your body and see what you feel where. Now, we've gotten some movement in, so we're going to add in a little bit of stretching, because the first thing I want to do is open up the hips, give you a little more range, and once you have that more range, then later we can come back and add strength on top of it. So one of my favorite stretches is a stretch for the piriformis, is what we call it, but it is a stretch for a lot of different things as well. We're going to have one of our feet brought up right next to our sit bone, and the other foot is going to come up and over that knee. Now, many people are going to lean away to get in this position. What we want to do is, goal number one is work our butt back towards the floor. Once you get there, we're going to sit upright. Now, typically I'll have you sit in this position for 2 minutes. We can do 1 to 2 sets of this, and it's going to feel like an eternity. You want to actually time yourself to make sure we get our 2 minutes in, and usually about 1.5 minutes or so in, you're going to feel a moment where things start to relax. Now, I want you to be in a position where you can breathe. I don't want this to be so tight that you're holding your breath to stay there, okay? If you have to start leaned back, that's totally fine. The goals, however, are to get the butt to the floor and to sit upright. And now that we've done some work for the back of the hip, let's work a little bit on the front. Now, the next position can be difficult to get into, so we want to have varying degrees of how far we go. In the beginning, we're going to have one leg straight, The other foot is going to be back like this. Now, the starting phase is just getting in this position. If you can be here, you're doing it right. If we can't get here, then we can just work our way back towards it. You know, we may start here, work our way as far as we can back there, and then you're going to start to lean back as much as you can. Now, the goal obviously is to be able to lay all the way back, but that may take some time to get into. Find where you're comfortable stretching, where you can breathe the whole time. And same thing, we're going to hang out for 2 minutes here. Now, these 3 things are ways that we can address motor control, learning how to actually move your hips, and it's going to help to stretch out the back and the front of the hips. Now, for the next 3 weeks, I'm going to work through different ways to add some strength on top of that mobility, and really the goal is to get to control that balance between that mobility and the strength. We want strength through the entire range of motion that we have. But in the beginning, we just want to stretch because you can really only strengthen the range that you have access to. So these are the 3 that we want to start with. Now, your goal may never be to do the splits or some sort of crazy mobility exercise, but your goal definitely should be to never have pain in your hips and to be able to do whatever you want without ever having to say no because you're afraid of hurting yourself. So what we're doing over the next few weeks is showing you some ways that I like to use that help to open these up a little bit and make them strong and robust and resilient. So go ahead and give these a try, because if you can fix yourself, you should. And if you can't, we're here.